Howdy, howdy, and welcome to episode 116 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode of Eyes Free Sports, our guest is a gentleman who is originally from down under, from Australia, and now resides in the Pacific Northwest in Washington State. And in addition to a long career as an adaptive athlete and coach, he has also worked for several blind sports organizations and is currently very involved in the USBTA, the United States Blind Tennis Association. So let's go ahead and get out the racket, hit the court, and get swinging into episode 116 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. All right, so my guest here on this episode of Eyes Free Sports is Murray Elbourn. And Murray is the CEO of Amerability Services and is also a longtime adaptive athlete, very involved in blind tennis. I know has done coaching. Quite an interesting guy. Murray, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Greg. It's great to be here.
Likewise, appreciate you taking the time and so glad we connected. Always find it fascinating, especially fascinating to chat with folks, that have come to the U.S. from other countries and just kind of the differences in blind culture and blind sports, how that all compares, around the world compared to the U.S. So really excited for this conversation.
Yeah, likewise. I think there are some pretty big differences and people might not realize them. So it'd be great to talk through that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why don't we just kick off this episode, Murray, just with your background as far as your early years. I know you're from Australia originally, right?
Yeah, born in Sydney and lived in Sydney my whole life while I'm in Australia. Grew up from birth having blindness. I had scarring on both of my corneas from birth and only a half a field of vision in the left eye. And so I had about the equivalent of 2200 in the right eye and about 2800 in the left eye. And then I developed cataracts when I was 12, my first year in high school. And because of my inverted blood vessels on the eye, which are kind of on the outside of the eye or at the front of the lens, they weren't able to operate on those cataracts until I was 29. So I went nearly completely blind from kind of the age of 12 when I got them, and I lost a lot of vision in high school and continued to lose a lot of vision in my early working years. And then got the cataract surgery at 29, which was successful, luckily. And I got, the 2200 or about the 10% vision back in the right eye, which was amazing. So really very thankful for that. And then met an American lady at 30 and got engaged and got married, moved to the United States for 10 years, moved back to Australia in 2010, and then moved back to America in 2023 in March. And so back this year or last year, and we started our own business here. So yeah, it's been a real roller coaster living in both countries over the last kind of 25 years. But starting wise, I kind of grew up loving sport and played high school basketball and high school rugby in the mainstream. But as my vision kind of went away due to the cataracts, I was sent a letter actually just randomly to start playing blind cricket, which is kind of the equivalent to baseball here in Australia. And at 15, my best friend and I went and started playing blind cricket. And so that really opened up the world of blind sports for me. I knew nothing about blind sports, didn't know it existed. And so cricket was the first evolution. And then we would attend youth camps in Sydney with the Royal Blind Society, which is now Vision Australia. And so through that, I got introduced to goalball. The Australian captain and the Australian coach came down and did a session, and I just really took to the sport and loved it. And so started playing goalball, and that was in 1991, and was lucky enough to make the all-tournament Australian team the first year I played at the Australian Championships, and was then lucky enough to play goalball for Australia for 12 years. representing at the Asia Para Games, and then captaining Australia at the 2002 World Championships. So really that random event of getting a letter from Blind Cricket kind of opened up my world to play adaptive sport.
Sure, very interesting. And in general, specifically talking about goalball, is it pretty popular, pretty big in Australia?
Yeah, we have 5 states and 2 territories in Australia, so a lot bigger states than here in the States, where you have a lot more states, obviously. But it's played by all states and in some territories. And so our national championships have men's, youth, junior and women's competitions. So, yeah, we've nearly had 50 years of national championships in the country, and lucky enough to win a couple of national championships. And so goalball is it's a unique sport, but a lot of people have heard of it, obviously with the Sydney 2000 Paralympics and upcoming the Brisbane Paralympics in 2032. Australia is a real sporting nation, and so a lot of people do know goalball. And in my work career there, I headed up a Goalball for Schools program that showed goalball to, I think, nearly over 8,000 students. And that included around about 700 students with blindness and low vision. So it was a really popular sport in school. And yeah, a lot of people know about it.
Right, absolutely. I am curious, in terms of goalball, what would you say are kind of the keys to success, the keys to being successful at that sport?
I think it's a really unique game because obviously fitness, you need to be a strong athlete. And I think in coaching the sport as well as playing it, it's given me a really good understanding of what athletes need. And the game has changed and gotten a lot faster over the years. And now I think, a meld of kind of strength and speed, kind of like a CrossFit athlete, is where goalballers really excel. But additionally, the mental toughness that you need to be able to put a blindfold on, and if you have a little bit of vision, take that vision away. One of the big things that I always loved about my original coach was he was an orientation and mobility instructor from Birmingham in England. And he always told me, Murray, go home, put your eye shades on and walk around your house. And after you fall over a few times, you kind of start to visualize and remember where things are. And that visualization technique has really helped me throughout my life playing goalball. So I don't feel like I've got the eye shades on. I'm always kind of visualizing what's going on the court, and I think that's really helped me. So I think that mix of, being a physical athlete, but also being mentally strong, being able to concentrate and have that reactionary part of your game is really important.
Sure. All great points. In terms of blind tennis, so obviously blind tennis is still very new here in the U.S., just kind of, gotten going the last couple of years officially. But I understand it's been around quite a bit longer in Australia. Is that correct?
Yeah, not too much longer, actually. Mostly played in Japan and in Europe. And then it came to Australia, and there was a program in South Australia, actually, who started that. And then I kind of started the program in Sydney. And then that grew working with Tennis Australia over the last kind of 3 years that I was there. And they've done a fantastic job, Tennis Australia, in really embracing blind low vision tennis and making it part of the mainstream. So from a coaching point of view, courts, making it hopefully part of the Australian Open soon. They've had some really good sponsorships involved with that, and Tennis Australia's done a great job. And as you mentioned, it's pretty new here in the States. And so when I moved back last year, I was put in touch from Tennis Australia to US Tennis Association, USTA, and then spoke to the people there, and they put me in touch with a group that had been trying to get blind low vision tennis or blind visually impaired tennis, as it's known here in the States, going. And so I joined the board of directors last year and am working with them now to be able to do some really great things. We have a program in Washington State which is up and running and just got renewed with the School for the Blind. We have a program in Pennsylvania which has been going for a while. and doing really well. And really great support from Middle States and Pacific Northwest tennis chapters of USTA in doing that. So I'm really excited about attending the National Federation convention this year and doing a demonstration at the convention. So I think that's a great opportunity for people who might not know about blind low vision tennis to come along and have a try in a kind of supportive environment and see if you like it. And so I think it'll be really fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's super exciting to hear about kind of programs across the country. It sounds like starting to pop up, and a lot of effort getting put behind the sport, which is exciting.
Yeah, our board is really committed to expansion and getting the core service delivery right. But like anything, it's not just us who are doing it. USTA are really supportive. And as I said, those state organisations and regions of USTA have been really great in helping us kind of get started. And we just did an activation in the southern region as well. And so we're targeting, Florida, Texas as well. So the bigger states where we might not have that presence, but there's a school for the blind there. And so we've had to start working with those schools to be able to expand the program delivery.
Sure. And for those who might not be as familiar, if you just want to give kind of an overview of blind tennis, how it works.
Yeah. I think the great part about blind tennis is there's not that many adaptions. It's really a mainstream version of the game, played on a little bit shorter court. So from the net, there's the service boxes. And then halfway between the service boxes and the traditional baseline, we have a tactile baseline, which we put into the court. And then there's an audible ball, and I actually have the ball here. So audible ball, it's made up of foam, and it's a little bit bigger than a tennis ball, but not much bigger. And it has a ping pong ball inside of it, and then ball bearings in the ping pong ball from an audible point of view. And this ball gets to bounce twice or three times instead of the traditional once, and then you have to hit it back over the net. So those are the main parts of the adaption. And then the only other real adaption is that when the server is serving, they can serve overarm or underarm. They ask the receiver, are they ready to receive the serve? The receiver says yes, and then the server will say play when they're about to hit the ball. So the receiver knows that the ball's in play and is coming to them. So I think, those minor adaptions really make for a really fun and great game that is like traditional tennis, which is important in the adaption phase.
Right, absolutely. And this sport is definitely open to, totally blind, low vision, high partial. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. In different regions, we have what we call a B4 classification, which is people who don't make the Paralympic classification system. But kind of 10% to 2% is B3, and then 2% to light perception is B2, and then B1 is a totally blind athlete. So we have all those categorizations. And for the lower tier, the B2 and the B1 categories, they get 3 bounces before they have to hit the ball back over the net, where the B2 and the B2 gets 2 bounces. Sorry, the B3 gets 2 bounces, and the people who don't make the Paralympic classification just get a single bounce, like mainstream tennis.
Gotcha. I see. Speaking of the Paralympics, I'm curious about, kind of the efforts, the push to get blind tennis in the Paralympic Games. Any light you can shed on that?
Yeah, well, as you know, you've had Amir on here, who heads up the International IPTA Tennis Association. We're working really hard to try and understand what the parameters are to be in the Paralympic Games. We've got LA 2028. It would be fantastic if we were able to even have that as a demonstration sport here, and then moving into Brisbane, where it's also very popular in Australia, have it as a medal sport. So there's a process in place, and a lot of sports obviously want to make the Paralympics, but with wheelchair tennis already a part of the Paralympics, we think that it's a natural progression for blind and visually impaired or blind low vision tennis to also get a spot in the Paralympic Games.
Sure. So in addition to actually playing, competing in sports yourself, I know you've done a fair amount of coaching. I understand if you just want to talk about some of your roles as a coach and kind of how you've maybe translated your experience in blind sports to coaching.
Yeah, and just going back one point, blind low
Sure.
vision tennis was actually in the IPSA World Games. So IPSA is the governing body of blind sport across the world, and the World Games were held last year in the United Kingdom, in England, and blind low vision tennis was a sport in those games. So that's kind of the first step to Paralympics. With regards to coaching, I feel really fortunate to have stepped into coaching after I finished playing goalball, and I've also been a part of the coaching team and management team for blind soccer in Australia, and kind of got that up and running as well with the support of Blind Sports Australia. And then as well as coaching goalball, now tennis as well. So I'm one of the coaches for the Pacific Northwest Blind Low Vision program, and then involved obviously with the activities like we talked about at the National Convention for NFB. So I think coaching is a great way to be able to give back after you finish playing, and it keeps you involved in the sport. For me, I'm a pretty technical coach, especially with goalball. I'm in the final interview stage right now of interviewing for the head coach role for the USA National Women's Program for goalball. So really looking forward to working with the women more. Unfortunately, they missed out on qualification for Paris 2024. So it'll be the first time that our USA Women's Goalball team isn't at the Paralympics, but that's really strengthened the squad and really given them a strong goal looking forward to LA 2028. My history is really, when I moved back to Australia, I was the assistant head coach for the Australian men's team for goalball for about a year and a half, and then took over as the head coach for 4 years. And we competed at IPSA World Games as well as some regional qualification events. And then after that, I started coaching our youth teams. Being that we were so far away from the rest of the world in Australia, I was lucky enough to be able to create a really strong schools program so that our school-aged youth players got good competition across the schools competition. And that enabled us to travel to Colorado Springs for the first time in 2013. And our women just missed out on a medal. They lost in the bronze medal match to the USA. We got beat 2-1. And that was the first time any of those girls had actually gone internationally and played a tournament. So it was a great result. And that really started the youth program getting a lot stronger, working with the senior programs as well for Goalball Australia. And then in 2017, I took our youth girls to Budapest and we won the Youth World Championships, defeating Russia in the gold medal games. So it was a great achievement, a great experience for all the girls, and it just kind of showed me the value of being able to give back and create an environment that's really welcoming for players, and just breeds success and good opportunities for people. And then after that, obviously, kind of coached at the national level with my state, and we won a couple of national championships in support with coaches. But I just really enjoyed the experience of coaching and the communication with players. And it's something that I've loved doing for 30 years, even as a player, leading teams around the court.
Sure. Wow. That's quite a resume you've got, I must say, in terms of your achievements, in coaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that you aim for, is to win a big tournament like that. But there was a lot of support around that, a lot of, great volunteers and parents and referees and support from the national body and the international body. So I feel really fortunate to be part of the greater goalball community and being able to come back to the States now and hopefully be the USA women's head coach moving forward. So it gives me back more than I give it, I think.
Sure. And just a little more on coaching. I know you've obviously coached a lot of young people over the years. And I'm curious, how have you witnessed, the impact of sports and recreation on blind and visually impaired youngsters?
I just think it's so essential, Greg. In working in the business that we'll talk about in a little while, creating an opportunity for young kids to be able to move and get out of the bubble and really experience life, I think is so rewarding, not only for the individual as a child, but for the family to be able to see the opportunities for that child to grow and feel more confident in their own body. And it helps with so many different things. Helps with self-esteem and confidence, and movement at a young age can't ever be replaced. It's probably the biggest thing that I love about working in the sports industry and the coaching kind of field. We recommended and we worked with a lot of people who went to kinder gyms and started in gymnastics at a young age, or did judo, which is also a Paralympic sport, just to get that movement. And obviously we did youth goalball, and now we're starting to do some youth tennis stuff. But there's great opportunities. And here in the US, they're just starting the blind soccer program as well, which is fantastic. So another opportunity for people to get out and do things. And of course, there's beep baseball as well, which has been around for a long time.
Absolutely. So in terms of, just from a broad standpoint, blind sports in Australia and maybe other regions of the world that you visited compared to the US, how would you say those kind of compare?
I think the biggest thing that I've kind of noticed is that in most other countries, the mainstream sport is the governing body and they get really involved. Here, I want to say it's still a little bit niche around blind sporting organisations kind of driving the sports outside of the mainstream sporting body. So I guess, if you take beep baseball or a sport like that, and soccer coming in, I don't know that the national body has a lot to do with how that runs. Where in Australia, blind cricket, as an example, is completely run by Cricket Australia. Blind football is completely run by Football Australia. And apart from obviously niche sports like goalball that don't have a sided equivalent, I see that's the big difference in the modelling. So, I think that everyone would love to have a blind basketball and a blind NFL opportunity to play, but at the moment that's kind of not on the view of those national key organisations like the NBA and the NFL. So I think working forward, I'd love to see more mainstream sports get involved and support what blind sports are trying to achieve. And obviously, look, funding through USABA is pretty tough. And so, they don't have enough funding to be able to develop these extra sports where they're focused on kind of their 5 core sports that are Paralympics focused. So it's an interesting dynamic here in the US, but there's lots of great opportunities and there's lots of great organizations who do a fantastic job working with people with blindness and low vision as well around the country.
Absolutely. Yeah, all great points. And I do know in terms of blind hockey, some of the NHL clubs have, started blind hockey clubs under their umbrella, and there has been some support, just as another example. But totally agree that in general, a lot of the major kind of governing bodies and sports leagues out there have not really backed some of these blind sports, even disability sports in general. But hopefully as time goes on, we'll see more of that, like with the USTA, backing blind tennis.
Yeah, and I think USTA, they don't have a disability tennis section to them. And so they're learning and they're trying to support in ways that really are out of their comfort zone. And I think I was fortunate when we started, blind low vision tennis in Australia, that Tennis Australia already had a pretty good disability division, and they're really, pretty experienced in the wheelchair version of what blind tennis is, or what disability tennis is. So I think it's our job as United States Blind Tennis Association to hold the hand of USTA through that journey and be able to build strong partnerships with blind sporting organisations across the country and blind schools to be able to get that participation up, but also have those partnerships that are going to be impactful and a good product for USTA to showcase as well.
So true. Yeah. And we always talk about education, those of us with disabilities educating the world and society and others about our needs and abilities and whatnot. And I think the same totally applies in this situation.
Yeah, it's great to hear that ice hockey teams have kind of adopted teams because I think that's the model. We have Australian rules football and rugby in Australia that are big sports, and both organisations have done a fantastic job in adopting teams and having a disability team now as part of their club. And I think that's the model. That's the way we can move forward quickly in that instance. So I'd love to, see us part of the US Open in a couple of years and have a satellite tour circuit for blind low vision tennis as they do for mainstream tennis. So I think those things are definitely on the agenda.
Sure. So let's move on to Amerability Services. So as I mentioned at the top, you're currently the CEO of this organization, and I'm definitely curious about kind of the mission and goals of this company.
It's an interesting journey, Greg. When I moved back from the United States, when I moved back from Australia to the United States, I thought, what am I going to do? I left the CEO job of Disability Sports Australia, which was a great job and a great company to work for, and some really great partnerships that were making a big difference in Australian sport. And I really wanted to kind of stay in that field, but also really focus on blindness and low vision because Disability Sports Australia was more of a physical disability organisation with wheelchair, cerebral palsy, amputee and short stature. And so when I came back, I was fortunate to be familiar with Matthew Hines, who is the manager for youth services at Washington State Disability Services for the Blind. And so I met with Matthew and we kind of looked at contract opportunities for a business that I would start to contract with the state body. And that opened up a whole range of opportunity for my company, Amerability, on how we would work with youth with blindness and low vision and their families. So I think right now is a great time to be able to look at contracting with state agencies because federal government funding is definitely driven by disability employment. And so our model is really looking at how can we encourage people-centric behaviour and focus on building people up and giving them the opportunities to grow and achieve more confidence to be able to get them employable. So our programs is really focused on that employability factor, but it's very person-centric. So in spring break this year, Amerability held a youth camp with 13 participants who have blindness and low vision in the Tri-Cities area in Washington State. And we did blind tennis, we did an indoor trampoline park, mini golfing, swimming, but we also did a lot of job readiness components. And one session in particular really kind of made me think about how we're working with our youth. And it was around asking each participant to talk about how they see their vision, what their eye condition is, how their vision impacts their day-to-day, how they talk about their vision loss to people, and how they advocate for themselves. And that session really showed me that we need to do more work in that 0 to 13 age group with families. So I'm working really pretty closely with the teachers for the visually impaired here and the director of 0 to 5 services. And they've all been super fantastic about collaborating with us here at Amerability. So we're just about to sign our second-year contract with Washington State, and we'll have 6 weekend camps now this year coming up where we can reinforce what the state body is doing during the summer, during their long residential programs to build employment. So I'm really excited about those opportunities to reinforce to families and to participants. And sports are a big part of that, obviously. movement at an early age is a big part of that. So it's really a blank canvas, Greg, that we have to work from. And I just presented to Nevada last week in Las Vegas as well, and they're super excited to start a goalball program and a tennis program, and have been wanting to do that for a long time. So I think from a sports perspective, I have a great opportunity based off the experience and the lived experience I have to be able to make a big difference around states that we work in for Amerability.
Wow, that's amazing. I definitely applaud you for that work, and just kind of thinking back on my own journey and, as far as like launching my career years ago. And I know you talked about how people, really should learn how to talk about their vision, explain their needs, and that's something I definitely struggled with for a long time and had so many job interviews and kind of realized it was that I didn't know how to really talk about, explain in layman's terms, my vision, my needs, advocating for myself. So to start kids at such a young age like that, it's really fantastic.
It's so rewarding to see the growth that immediately happens in youth, and the way their families kind of take that on board. And so in this session where we're talking about vision and how you use it and how you talk about it, one of the questions was, do you know your visual acuity and do you know your field of vision? And none of the 13 could tell me either of those things. And so that led to a conversation around, well, what happens when you see your eye specialist with your family, your parents? What's the conversation? And more, I think there's a disconnect there. So the families aren't understanding what the specialist is saying completely to them, and they can't read the eye report when it's sent to them post the appointment. And so then no discussion really happens between the parents, the specialist, and the participant around ways that you can, increase your functionality. And so that's a big role that we want to play in working across the states in the space, is being able to collaborate effectively and complement what the state organizations are doing, but in a way where, I've been in those settings like you. I've been through interviews and I think, how am I going to use adaptive equipment? And when I was young and doing my first, couple of interviews, I didn't have any vision really. I had pretty much no useful vision. And so just understanding how to get around the workplace and all that sort of stuff is really daunting for people. And I also think people with blindness and low vision aren't seeing those champions enough, where they can model themselves and get mentoring. So that's another reason why I'm a big fan of organizations like NFB, because I believe that really they have such a great role to play in providing that state and national mentorship programs. And so I'm really excited to start working with NFB through USBTA.
Absolutely. Fantastic. And also just kind of emphasizing, we've already kind of woven it through this episode, but just the benefits of sports and how it can benefit people in their careers and just everyday lives in terms of confidence, teamwork. There's so many. The list goes on and on. Absolutely.
Yeah, I really, I've got to travel the world. I've got to walk on the Great Wall of China. I've got to see all of America, all of Australia. And I just feel so lucky to have built friendships and, relationships around the world, to be able to do something that I love to do. So I think, showcasing that to youth and families is so important. And I really believe it's kind of the starting place of change, where it's been a state-driven model for a lot of years. But I believe that, we can do a lot more. And so, I'm looking forward to working with organizations like USBTA and also United States Association of Blind Athletes, to set up, high-performance goalball programs and link them to opportunities to work with universities in their regions and, just offer more partnerships and more collaboration and more media about it.
Absolutely. All good stuff. Love to hear that.
It's so important. It really is.
No doubt. Yeah. All right. So before we wrap up here, I just wanted to give you the chance, Murray, to mention any kind of contact info, any resources maybe around blind tennis that folks can find out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Greg. We are developing our web and social media campaigns right now for United States Blind Tennis Association. I hope to have those at the convention to be able to contact us and get involved. But if you search USBTA or United States Blind Tennis Association, contact information can come up to you. If you'd like to get in contact with Amerability about services, or if we don't offer services in your state, we work in 5 states at the moment, predominantly the Northwest, and we just got contracted in Nevada and working to get contracted in Utah and California as well. So we're expanding pretty rapidly. Amerability will also be at the AER International Blind Convention that's happening in Charlotte, North Carolina, and will be at the NFB National Convention this year. So you can reach out to us through email, and it's just Amerability Services @gmail.com. And I'm really looking forward to talking and meeting people at the national convention and seeing how we can help more people.
Excellent. And as always, I'll include all that info in the show notes for people's access as well.
Thank you.
All right. Again, we've been visiting with Murray Elbourn here on Eyes Free Sports. And Murray, really appreciate the time. Can definitely sense the passion in your voice and just everything that you're doing here in the U.S. and that you've done globally. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here.
It's my pleasure, Greg. And thanks again for inviting me. Shows like yours are so important in being able to spread the word and build that knowledge base for people listening in. So I really appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and look forward to hopefully meeting you at conference.
Absolutely. Yep. Alrighty. Thanks again.
Have a great day.
To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter @eyesfreesports.